seated. Ngā manuhiri tuarangi, ngā rangatira mā, ngā iwi o te motu, ngā mihi mahana kia koutou katoa. Visitors from afar, our respected guests, people of New Zealand, my very warm greetings to all of you. The Honourable Taito Philip Field representing the government today, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Government House this morning. I hope that you will enjoy this ceremony and our hospitality, and I am sure that this will be a memorable day for all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, I have it on command of the Queen to hold an investiture on Her Majesty's behalf and to confer the honour of Distinguished Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit on Dr. Joy Drayton of Tauranga. I have it on command also to present the other recipients here assembled, the insignia, decorations and medals to which they are entitled. All of you have, in various ways, rendered distinguished service to New Zealand, to the Commonwealth and to the Queen. Ladies and gentlemen, as each recipient is honoured, may I invite you to join me in thanking them for their service and in congratulating them on their well-merited awards. I will now ask the Official Secretary, Mr. Tia Barrett, and the Director of the Honours Secretariat, Mr. David Bagley, to summon those whom Her Majesty has chosen to honour.
Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of a Distinguished Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Dr. Joy Drayton of Tauranga, for services to education and local body affairs. Dr. Drayton has given valuable service to the Waikato and Bay of Plenty regions over many years. She was a Tauranga City Councillor and Deputy Mayor, as well as a Regional Councillor and Deputy Chairman and Chair of the Resource Planning Committee. She was Principal of Tauranga Girls College from 1959 to 1981, a member of the Council of the University of Waikato, and served the University as Pro-Chancellor, Chancellor, and as a member of the Court of Convocation. She was a member of the Tauranga branch of the Executive Committee of the National Council of Women, a member of the Executive Committee of the Historic Places Trust, and chairperson of the Bay of Plenty Women's Refuge. Dr. Drayton is still actively involved in a number of community organisations. Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of a Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Mr. Wyn Beasley of Wellington, for services to orthopaedics and the community. Mr. Beasley has made a major contribution of the science of prosthetics and limb fitting in New Zealand. He was appointed a member of the New Zealand Artificial Limb Board in 1969 and served as its chairman for 9 years. He has been the chairman of the International Society of Prosthetics and Orthotics and a member of its international committee. He was vice president of the Council of the Royal Australasian College of Surgeons and was made a member of its Court of Honour in 1986. He has served in the Wellington Division of the New Zealand Medical Association, the Executive Committee of the New Zealand Orthopaedic Association, and was the President of the New Zealand chapter of the American College of Surgeons. Between 1986 and 1990, he was Colonel Commandant of the Royal New Zealand Army Medical Corps. Mr. Beasley is active in various medical and community groups, including the New Zealand Red Cross Society, the Road Traffic Accident Research Foundation, and the Wellington Medical History Society. Mr. Chris Mace of Auckland for services to the Antarctic and the community. Mr. Mace was Chairman of Antarctica New Zealand for 7 years and Chairman of Environmental Health and Forensic Sciences Limited from 1992 to 1998. During his time as Chair of Antarctica New Zealand, he oversaw considerable change in its structure and strategic priorities, as well as the final completion and capital upgrade of Scott Base. He had a particular interest in supporting the arts in Antarctica and is chair of the Antarctica Heritage Trust. He was instrumental in setting up the Sir Peter Blake Trust and chaired the St. John's Anglican Trust for many years. Mr. Mace has been Deputy Chair of the St. Cuthbert's Board for 10 years and has also served on the Auckland Grammar School Headmasters Board.
Your Excellency, to receive the New Zealand Bravery Star, Mr. John Fenton of Papakura, lately of Rawene, Northland, and the late Mr. Trevor Mokaraka of Whangarei. The New Zealand Bravery Star, awarded to the late Mr. Trevor Mokaraka, is to be received by his sister Elizabeth Mokaraka. On the morning of Friday, the 10th of December 1999, a man entered his home and told his partner to go to the shops for some cigarettes. While she was away, he killed their 2 children. When she returned to their home, he attempted to murder her with a knife. Her screams were heard by 2 neighbours, Mr. Fenton and Mr. Mokaraka, who both went to her aid. Upon entering the house, they were confronted by the man who was attempting to kill the woman on the lounge floor. Mr. Fenton and Mr. Mokaraka tried to disarm him, and in the ensuing struggle, Mr. Mokaraka received a fatal wound to the chest. Mr. Fenton and the woman continued to defend themselves against the man's attacks with a knife. After a fight lasting some considerable time, Mr. Fenton managed to disarm the man, and both he and the woman were able to make their escape. The man then locked himself inside the house with his 2 deceased children and inflicted knife wounds to himself. These were not fatal, and he was subsequently charged with numerous offences, including murder. The actions of Mr. Fenton and Mr. Mokaraka undoubtedly saved the woman's life. Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of a Companion of the Queen's Service Order for Community Service, Mrs. Martili Glover of Gisborne. Mrs. Glover has represented and served the Taili Fiti community, both Māori and non-Māori, at both local and national levels. Her skills lie in health and community advocacy, and she was the first Māori principal health nurse appointed in the area. She has been involved with Tauranga Health, the C Company Association of the 28th Māori Battalion, the Māori Women's Welfare League, the Gisborne Children's Health Camp Committee of Management, and the National Board of Children's Health Camps. She was president of the National Council of Māori Nurses and the Māori Women's Welfare League representative on the National Meningococcal Rollout Committee. Mrs. Glover has served on many local iwi committees. Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of a Companion of the Queen's Service Order for Public Services, Mr. Alan Dick of Napier. Mr. Dick has served his community in many capacities since the 1980s. He served 4 terms as Mayor of Napier, during which time the Council took a proactive role in local economic development and financial restructuring. He has been a Director of Port of Napier Limited, Napier City Council Lates and Vision 2020 Limited. He was the founding trustee for the Napier Cadet Academy Trust and chairman of the Napier Pilot City Trust. As executive director of the YMCA, he developed the organisation into one of the largest employment training providers in Hawke's Bay. The Honourable Roger Macleay of Wellington. Mr. Macleay began his public service career as a teacher at Ardmore Teachers College and was principal for 5 years. In 1979, he was a Commonwealth Exchange teacher in the United Kingdom. He has been an active member of NZEI, as well as becoming the National Vice President of the New Zealand JC organisation and an international JC Senator. From 1981 to 1984, he was Member of Parliament representing Taupo, and from 1984 was Member of Parliament for Waikato Moana. From 1990 to 1996, Mr. Macleay was Minister of Youth Affairs and Associate Minister of Education, Social Welfare, Pacific Island Affairs and the National Library. Mr. Macleay was Commissioner for Children from 1998 to 2003.
Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of an Officer of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Mr. Alistair Campbell of Wellington for services to literature. Mr. Campbell is one of New Zealand's leading poets. He edited the first poetry program on radio in 1958 while working as an editor for school publications. Since the 1960s, his poetry has emphasised his Polynesian background, as do his plays written for the radio. He has tutored creative writing nationally and internationally and is a former president of PEN. He was a regional finalist for the Commonwealth Writers' Prize with his novel The Frigate Bird in 1989. Professor Cathy Crozier of Auckland for services to medicine. Professor Crozier is Professor of Molecular Medicine at the University of Auckland. She has also been a tutor specialist in haematology and a haematologist at Auckland Hospital. Her particular interests are in blood development, leukemia, and genomics, and she serves on the Genetics Advisory Committee of the Royal College of Pathologists of Australasia, the Scientific Committee of the Leukemia and Blood Foundation, and is a director of the New Zealand Blood Service. She is currently assisting in research on the mapping of zebrafish genes, gene silencing, leukemia, and other related topics. Mr. Ray LeBone of Wellington for services to the design industry. Mr. LeBone was first employed as a book designer with the publishing firm AH&AW Reid. After working in London and Japan, he returned to New Zealand to establish his own publication design consultancy, which at its peak was the largest graphic design consultancy in Australasia. He is a past Vice President of the Designers Institute of New Zealand and a professional member and co-chair of the government's Design Task Force, which helps contribute to the development of the design profession in New Zealand. Emeritus Professor Michael Selby of Hamilton for services to education. Professor Selby has been involved with the University of Waikato for almost all of its 40-year history. He was one of the original members of the university's Department of Geography and the Department of Earth Sciences. He was appointed to a personal chair in the Department of Earth Sciences and was later awarded a Doctorate of Science degree by Oxford University. He was Deputy Vice-Chancellor for 16 years before retiring in 2002 and led the team that negotiated the lease of the university's campus with Tainui. He established the university's research office and subsequently commercialised its intellectual property through the incorporation of Waikato Link Limited, of which he was the first chairman of directors. Professor Selby was an inaugural trustee of the Waikato Medical Research Foundation and is currently its chairman. Commander Andrew Watts, Royal New Zealand Navy of Wellington. Commander Watts assumed command of HMNZS Te Mana in early January 2003, 3 weeks before the ship was due to deploy to the Arabian Sea in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. The frigate deployed to the area of operations as planned, and during 5 extended patrols, 763 ship inquiries and 87 boardings were conducted. Additionally, 70 ships were escorted through the Straits of Hormuz. Te Mana spent 4 months on station, spending around 80% of the time at sea. That the ship sustained such a high operating tempo earned a reputation for the highest professional standards and brought much esteem to the New Zealand Defence Force, reflects great credit on the commanding officer and on his ship's company. Mr. Doug Voss of Tauranga for services to the kiwi fruit industry. Mr. Voss is General Manager of Zespri Fresh Produce. He has been contributing to the kiwi fruit industry since 1978, moving through the levels of representation from Chairperson of the Tauranga Fruit Growers Association to his current position. He has championed the development of organics and that of the Zespri Gold variety of kiwi fruit. He led the industry review in 1999, which resulted in its restructuring and brought an international focus to the business in New Zealand. He has travelled extensively overseas to assess the industry in other countries and the marketing of New Zealand's kiwi fruit.
Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of a member of the New Zealand Order of Merit. Warrant Officer Class 1 Danny Broughton, Royal New Zealand Infantry Regiment of Waiouru. Warrant Officer Class 1 Broughton served as the Regimental Sergeant Major for the New Zealand Battalion Group in East Timor from November 2001 to May 2002. During this time, he displayed exemplary leadership, judgment and mana as the unit's senior soldier. He worked tirelessly to ensure that all unit soldiers were professionally challenged by adapting to the changing environmental environment and maintaining high personal standards. He also provided his commanders with timely, common sense and proactive advice on a wide range of matters that were, in many cases, beyond the usual domain of his appointment. In particular, he took the lead in managing an independent operation which not only enhanced the operational effectiveness of the unit, but will improve the way in which New Zealand peacekeeping soldiers operate in the future. Mrs. Iris Donoghue of Auckland, for services to the environment. Mrs. Donoghue was the founding chairperson for the Keep Waitakere Beautiful program in 1993, and in 1995 she was the innovator behind the Trash to Fashion program. She also set up a Tag Out Graffiti Trust, which proved to be the most successful graffiti removal service within the Auckland region. She was one of the instigators of the Weed Free Waitakere Trust, and in 1999 became the chair of Keep New Zealand Beautiful. Squadron Leader Glenn Graham, Royal New Zealand Air Force of Upper Hutt. In May 2003, the Maritime Patrol Force deployed to the Arabian Gulf to conduct counter-terrorist operations. Squadron Leader Graham anticipated and dealt with the needs of the deployment and coordinated responses from New Zealand. His contribution played a large part in making the deployment a success. He has been involved in the planning and conduct of patrols to the Ross Sea, New Zealand's exclusive economic zone, and to the South and Central Pacific Oceans. He was instrumental in developing trials of real-time imagery transfer from patrolling Orion aircraft, a capability that has since become a key part of the maritime intelligence picture. His outstanding effort has significantly enhanced the capability and reputation of the Maritime Patrol Force. Mr. Nookie Johnson of Taupo, for services to boxing. Mr. Johnson's boxing career began in 1947 and he was the holder of several provincial titles. In 1957 he formed the Levin Boxing Club, and in 1966 the Taupo Boxing Club, where he has been coach and administrator ever since. He was instrumental in organising and resurrecting the North Island Golden Gloves Championship and has managed New Zealand boxing teams to championships in Australia and Western Samoa. He was manager of the boxing team for the 1990 Commonwealth Games. In 1996, he was elected an honorary life member of the New Zealand Boxing Association, and in 2003 was appointed National Director of Boxing Coaches. Major Paul Napier, Royal New Zealand Armoured Corps of Lower Hutt. Major Napier was appointed to the role of Project Trainer for the New Zealand Light Armoured Vehicle Project in December 1999. His professionalism, diligence and project supervision have significantly contributed to the success of establishing the New Zealand Army's new motorised capability. He contributed to the development of the Army Transition Training Team and the new motorisation structure associated with the integration of the new vehicle into service. The quality of Major Napier's work has been impressive and well beyond the expectations of an officer of his rank and experience. Mr. John Reid of Martinborough, for services to the community. Mr. Reid is an active member of the Wairarapa community and has continuously served on county and district councils in South Wairarapa since 1974. He was Mayor of South Wairarapa from 1995 to 2004. He has also served on various boards, including the District Roads Board, Wairarapa Hospital Board, Wairarapa Committee and Land Transport Committee for the Wellington Regional Council, and as Director of the Wairarapa Crown Health Enterprise. From 2000 to 2002, Mr. Reid was Zone Representative on the National Council of Local Government New Zealand. Mr. Tom Robinson of Foxton for services to local government. Mr. Robinson has been actively involved in local government for 25 years. He was Mayor of Horowhenua District Council for 9 years until his retirement in 2004. Prior to that, he was Deputy Mayor for 6 years and a Councillor for 15 years. He was also a Councillor on the Manawatu County Council for 11 years and served terms as both Deputy Chairman and Chairman. He was a Councillor on the Manawatu District Council following the amalgamation of that council and Kailanga County Council. Mr. Robinson also served for 10 years as President of the American Field Scholarship Association. Ms. Judy Stridd of Auckland for services to women's health. Ms. Stridd is currently the Director of Advocacy for the Health and Disability Commissioner. She is a member of the Auckland Regional Ethics Committee and a consumer representative for the Women's Health Action Trust. She has over 20 years' experience as a volunteer and consumer representative in the field of health. She is involved in the Cancer Control Task Force, Breast Screen Aotearoa and Breast Screen Auckland. Other interests include the Women's Health Action Trust, the New Zealand Guidelines Group Advisory Board and Chair of the Midwives Standards Review Panel. Mrs. Christina Tapu of Manukau City for services to the Pacific Island community. Mrs. Tapu has been a major contributor to the development of Pacific communities in Auckland for the past 20 years. As a member of the Samoan Advisory Council, she has made a significant contribution to the Samoan community. For over 10 years, she worked to set up the Pacific Family Support Unit at Middlemore Hospital and is currently the Integrated Health Leader for South Seas Care. She was one of the leading Samoan nurses who have developed Pacific nursing initiatives over the past 20 years and was the coordinator of the National Survey for Pacific Nurses and Nursing Students in 2002. Mrs. Jean Thomas of Palmerston North for services to the community. Mrs. Thomas has been involved in a wide range of organisations in Palmerston North, including the Manawatu Art Gallery, the National Council of Women, the New Zealand Federation of Graduate Women, the New Zealand Pony Club, the Massey University Human Ethics Committee and the Awatapu College Board of Governors. She has belonged to the Manawatu Zonta Club since 1986 and was Governor of Zonta International New Zealand from 1998 to 2000. She has supported the Manawatu Art Gallery for 40 years, many of them as a member of the Gallery Council.
Your Excellency, to receive the New Zealand Bravery Medal, Mr. Ethan Kennedy of Whangarei. At about 4:30 p.m. on 3 February 2003, Ethan Kennedy, aged 12, was at home with his father when his father's partner arrived at the house with another man. Ethan's father walked outside where he was shot in the hand and stomach with a shotgun. Ethan came out of the house and confronted his father's attacker, screaming and yelling at him to leave his father alone. The attacker pointed the shotgun at Ethan, who pushed him and ran to get help from a neighbouring property. The attacker then left the scene and Ethan returned with a neighbour to help make his father comfortable before meeting the ambulance and police. He then gave an accurate account of what had occurred, together with a description of the offender and the vehicle he had used. The attacker later pleaded guilty to several offences, including attempted murder. There is a high probability that his father would have been shot again had Ethan not intervened. Your Excellency, to receive the Queen's Service Medal for Community Service, Mr. Ian Dunsmore of Gisborne. Mr. Dunsmore has made a significant contribution to the Gisborne community in the fields of sport, business, community and music. He developed the Gisborne International Music Competition, which is now in its 16th year, and which is recognised as a top international competition for young musicians. He has been a member of the Rotary Club of Gisborne since 1970 and has held numerous official positions. He has been a member of the Salvation Army Band for over 50 years and is a member of the Gisborne Opera Society, the Gisborne Competition Society and the Gisborne Civic Band. Mr. Dunsmore has had a long involvement with both cricket and soccer and represented Poverty Bay in soccer, cricket and rugby. Dr. Neil Hayes of Carterton. Dr. Hayes was Operations Director for Ducks Unlimited, the brown teal recovery program, for 15 years. He developed a natural pairing technique for endangered waterfowl and released over 1,000 captive reared brown teal into the wild in the Manawatu and Northland. For 15 years, he supervised 39 brown teal breeders throughout the country and personally reared 200 birds. He has written 3 manuals and 4 major papers on brown teal survival, and in 2002 founded the Brown Teal Conservation Trust. Mrs. Pare Irwin of Nuhaka. Mrs. Irwin joined the Maori Women's Welfare League in 1964 and held many early meetings in her own home. Members made regular visits to Pāremoremo Prison and Carrington Hospital. In 1965, she became a Maori art teacher at the Adult Education University of Auckland and in 1975 a teacher of Maori language at Northcote College. She assists in the education of local children about the Treaty of Waitangi, Māori history, waiata and health issues. Dr. Kalu Pahana of Lower Hutt. Dr. Kalu Pahana has been a general practitioner in Carterton and Lower Hutt since 1976. He has been a member of the United Sri Lanka Association of New Zealand for 20 years, being president 4 times, and he has also been president of the Sri Lanka Friendship Society. He has assisted refugees from Kampuchea to settle in Lower Hutt and Stokes Valley, and along with sponsors has collected clothing, furniture and cash to assist these people and provided free medical assistance. He has also assisted the Somali refugee community in Lower Hutt. The Reverend Alan Ledley of Hamilton. The Reverend Ledley has served as parish minister and pastor to local communities of Methodist, Presbyterian and Anglican parishes. He has been a mission director overseas for combined Methodist and Presbyterian activities, serving in the Pacific as a pastor, teacher and lecturer. He has served as a hospital chaplain and has played a significant part in supporting such initiatives and developments as the Waikato Interfaith Council. Mr. Bukan Parbu of Wellington. Mr. Parbu has made a major contribution to the Indian community for over 30 years. He has served the Wellington Indian Association in many capacities, including President, Secretary and Treasurer. He has been Vice President and General Secretary of the New Zealand Indian Central Association. He was the driving force in bringing many Indian cultural films to Wellington to set up the Wellington Satya Sai Service Organisation in 1984, which has grown from 6 to over 200 participants. He has acted as an interpreter for the Immigration Service and been a representative on the Bank Officers Union. He has been an active volunteer for the Royal New Zealand Foundation for the Blind for 16 years and is associated with Wellington Victim Support. Mrs. Thelma Ruahonen of Taupo. Mrs. Ruahonen began working with special needs children on a voluntary basis in 1972, then trained as a teacher. In 1987, she was senior teacher in the satellite unit of Hamilton North Special School, and in 1990 was appointed principal. She has contributed much to the development of curricula for special needs students and encouraged strong community involvement with the school. She has ensured good links with the local Maori community and encouraged strong parent involvement with the school and raised its profile as an integral part of the wider education community.
Your Excellency, to receive the Queen's Service Medal for Public Services, Mr Darryl Frost, Senior Firefighter, Balclutha Volunteer Fire Brigade, New Zealand Fire Service. Mr Forrest joined the Balclutha Volunteer Fire Brigade in 1980. He was President of the South Otago Sub-Association of the Fire Brigades Association for 3 years and has been elected a life member of the Otago South and Provincial Fire Brigades Association. He was elected to the executive of the United Fire Brigades Association in 1997 and was president in 2002. He is an ambulance officer of 27 years' experience and has served on many community groups, including the South Otago Small Bore Rifle Club, Bowling Club and the Institute of Ambulance Officers. Mr Rainer Henson, Senior Firefighter, Picton Volunteer Fire Brigade, New Zealand Fire Service. Mr Henson joined the Picton Volunteer Fire Brigade in 1955 and has served for 49 years and is still an operational member of the brigade. During his service he has attended more than 75% of all musters, practice nights and fire calls. He was involved in the Picton JCs and Picton Plunket and was an active sportsman in boxing, cycling, rugby, rowing and running. Mr Henson was also Commodore of the Queen Charlotte Yacht Club. Mr Trevor Humphrey of Wanganui. Mr Humphrey has fought for the pension rights of disabled servicemen from all theatres of war for many years. He has acted as an unpaid advocate for veterans, ex-servicemen and the widows of deceased servicemen, particularly of veterans exposed to nuclear, biological and chemical agents through the agency of the RIMPAC Association. Mr John McCullough, lately Chief Fire Officer, Waipawa Volunteer Fire Brigade, New Zealand Fire Service. Mr McCullough has served for 50 years with the Waipawa Volunteer Fire Brigade with an attendance record exceeding 85%. He rose through the ranks to become Chief Fire Officer in 1989, retiring in 2004. He has maintained a good relationship with surrounding brigades and with local employers. He has been an active Rotarian, a long-time rugby supporter, player and administrator, and is a lawn bowls player and greenkeeper. Mr Chaz Parker of Auckland. Mr Parker has made an important contribution to the Mount Wellington community for over 40 years. He was elected to the Mount Wellington Licensing Trust in 1962 and served until 1998, being chairman for the last 3 years. He is a member of the Mount Wellington Return Services Association and president of the Mount Wellington and District Branch of the King's Empire Veterans. He was a member of the Auckland Blood Transfusion for 35 years. Mr John Ward, Rural Fire Mediator, New Zealand Fire Service of Nelson. Mr Ward has committed over 50 years of his life to the protection of forest and rural lands in New Zealand and continues to provide a valuable contribution to individuals and landowners in effecting an efficient fire management system for forests and rural lands in Nelson. He is serving his second 5-year term as a member of the Rural Fire Mediators Panel and retains an advisory role for the Waimea Rural Fire Authority. Mr John Whitty of Wellington. Mr Whitty has been National Director for the New Zealand Prisoners Aid and Rehabilitation Organisation since 1989. He is a supporter for penal reform and during his tenure has visited prisons throughout the world. He works to ensure that inmates' rights are addressed and to reinforce the principles of humane containment while offenders are incarcerated. He has assisted with the establishment of new societies in the West Coast, Kaitaia and Marlborough, and supports 20 local societies at a governance level. Your Excellency, the investiture is now concluded.
Those whom we have honoured today are distinguished guests, family and friends. Twice a year, I have the great honour of meeting a small number of people from all parts of New Zealand who have come to Government House for their investiture. While my duties as Governor-General encompass a very wide range of activities, for me these ceremonies are among the most important events of the year. In a world where success is often measured in material terms, it is important to recognise and to celebrate achievements that have benefited the community or have given us a sense of pride in being New Zealanders. This occasion, when we have the public opportunity to show our admiration and our gratitude to those who have done so much for our country, is therefore of great importance. I am particularly pleased that we have among us people from all walks of life, from a wide age group and from a wide variety of occupations. Some of you have already received recognition for your work. For others, this may be the first time. Among you are a courageous few who have received awards for gallantry or bravery. For some, whether your award has been conferred for service or for courage, your acts have been performed in the line of duty. For others, you have acted out of a compassion or from a strong desire to help other people. But one thing I can say is that for all of you, the honour you have received today is well deserved. You have been selected for what you have done, whether on the spur of the moment or during long months or years of work, helping or guiding others. Our honours system reflects genuinely New Zealand values, and it's based on merit and merit alone. Our honours recognise achievement on behalf of and for all New Zealanders. They recognise community involvement, selfless dedication, bravery, ingenuity, intelligence and talent. This gathering is therefore a special occasion for me, for you, the recipients of these New Zealand honours, and for the whole of New Zealand. For this is a day when we as a nation can celebrate the achievements of all of you. You display the very best of our national character. I know that your work, your acts, and your example inspire other New Zealanders to work creatively, tirelessly, and selflessly, as each of you have done. Many of you have done so in a way that humbles me, and I know all of you who have heard of your endeavours today. It has been a great privilege for me to confer these honours on you today. On behalf of all New Zealanders, may I congratulate each one of you again for what you have achieved, and thank you for what you have done for your fellow citizens. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're almost at the end of the formal part of the ceremony, and shortly I invite you to join me in refreshments and give you the opportunity to walk through this beautiful house which belongs to all New Zealanders. I want to thank you for being here today and hope that, as I said at the outset, that you've really enjoyed this ceremony. I'm now going to ask you to join me in singing the national anthem in Māori and in English.